She didn't even flinch when she said it. I mean, we're just talking, Grady. You're seriously overreacting. Just. That was the word that shattered 12 years of my life. I was folding a towel, one of the big fluffy ones we got from her aunt as a wedding gift, and for some reason, my hands didn't stop moving even after she said it. I just kept folding, corner to corner, line to line, like a machine trying to stay functional while its circuit board melts. My lips were dry, my throat tight, but I still managed to ask. Talking? You've been texting this guy every night until 2 a.m. She didn't deny it. She didn't even look sorry. She just raised one eyebrow, tilted her head slightly, and sighed, like I was a stubborn child refusing to understand basic math. God, Grady. It's not physical. We're just talking. Can you stop being dramatic for once? I dropped the towel. Not by choice, my fingers just kind of let go. It landed on the floor like the last ounce of belief I had in her. I didn't yell. I didn't demand to see the messages. I didn't ask who he was, or what they talked about, or why she suddenly needed to spend her lunch breaks in the car. I already knew the answers. She sat back on the couch, pulled her knees up, and opened her phone again. Just like that. Like we weren't in the middle of something irreversible. Like my pain was background noise to whatever notification just popped up. So I walked upstairs, and I opened the guest room closet. The one with the suitcases we only use when her family flies us to Colorado for Christmas. I pulled mine out, the navy blue roller with the broken zipper I always forget to fix. I didn't have a plan. I didn't know where I'd go, but I was already packing. Socks, underwear, free shirts, my laptop charger, my toothbrush, the essentials. Not because I wanted to leave, but because staying had started to feel like an insult I kept delivering to myself every hour. I heard her laugh downstairs. A soft chuckle. I don't know if it was a video on her phone or if she was texting him again. Either way, she wasn't laughing with me. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, holding my shoes in my hands, staring at nothing. There were no suitcases when I moved in. No backup plan. No hidden drawer full of exit options. But here I was, packing like someone who knew the final page had already been written, and he just hadn't been allowed to read it yet. I wasn't leaving tonight, but I wasn't staying either. And I finally understood what silence sounds like. It's not quiet. It's her smiling at her phone while I fold towels in a house that doesn't feel like mine anymore. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I couldn't. I didn't even try. I laid there on the guest room mattress, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun in circles like my thoughts. Odessa didn't come up. She didn't knock. Didn't ask why I wasn't in our bed. Maybe she didn't notice. Maybe she didn't care. That hurt more than if she had screamed at me. The next morning, I heard her downstairs making coffee, humming softly. The same hum she used when things were normal, when she used to steal my hoodies and kiss me on the cheek just because. I sat at the top of the stairs, listening to it like it was a ghost sound. Then I went down, grabbed my keys without looking at her, and left. I didn't know where to go. I ended up parked outside a library I hadn't been to in years, engine off, just watching the door open and close as strangers passed in and out. I wasn't thinking clearly. All I knew was that I couldn't breathe in that house anymore. Not while she smiled at her screen like that. By noon, I had a missed call from her. Just one. No voicemail. I waited until 2:30 to go back. When I walked in, she didn't even ask where I had been. Just looked up from her laptop and said, "Did you eat?" That was her version of affection now. Asking if I'd eaten. As if that could stitch me back together. I sat on the armrest of the couch, a foot away from her, and asked it, "Do you even miss me anymore?" She didn't answer right away. She blinked, looked past me like she was searching for a polite way to lie, then shrugged. "I don't know," she said. "You're here all the time. It's like you're always around, but not in anything. You just exist next to me." That answer broke something. Not because it was cruel, because it was honest. I wanted to scream. I wanted to demand she stop talking to him, whoever he was. I wanted to tell her I felt like a ghost in my own house. But all I did was nod. Because when someone shrugs at your absence, you know the conversation's already over. You're just delivering your lines to an empty audience. Later that evening, I decided to check something. I opened our shared laptop. Not to snoop, but to confirm what I already feared. The tabs were still open. Her Gmail, her Slack messages, her private Pinterest board titled Someday. One tab stood out. Flights to Asheville. She had looked up solo tickets. One way. She was planning her escape. Quietly. Gently. The way someone tiptoes out of a room where someone else is sleeping. I stared at that screen until my eyes blurred. Then I closed it, walked to the hallway mirror, and looked at myself, really looked. Not the version of me that smiled in couple selfies or picked up dry cleaning on Thursdays. I saw a man whose wife was already gone, emotionally replaced by someone she could just talk to. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to chase. But I needed answers. So I wrote her a letter. Handwritten. Not dramatic. Just a page. I asked her if she remembered who we were before we got too busy to notice we stopped laughing. I asked if just talking was worth what she was about to lose. And at the very end, I asked her something that haunted me more than anything else. Do you still love me? Even a little. I left the note on her pillow. And then I kept packing, not out of anger, but because I knew, if I stayed one more night waiting for her to love me again, I'd lose the last bit of myself I still recognized. When I woke up the next morning, the note was gone from her pillow. At first, I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd read it, cried, come up to talk to me while I slept in the guest room. That she'd crawl into the sheets and whisper she was sorry. That she'd tell me she was scared too, that she didn't know how we'd gotten here, and that the phone calls, the talking, the whatever it was with Eli, it was just a confused distraction. A mistake. But there was no note in the bedroom. I checked the hallway. Nothing. Then I walked into the kitchen, and my breath caught in my throat. There it was. My letter, unfolded, face down on the counter next to a half-eaten piece of toast and a coffee mug with her lipstick smudged on the rim. It wasn't torn. It wasn't crumpled. But it was clearly untouched. She hadn't read it. She hadn't even opened it. It was like it didn't exist. My heart pounded. Not with rage, with something worse. Disbelief. The kind of quiet heartbreak that makes your stomach drop without warning. I just stood there, staring at it, while the refrigerator hummed beside me like nothing had happened. She walked in behind me moments later, adjusting her blouse. The same blue one she used to wear on our date nights. Now she wore it to work, and I couldn't help but wonder, was it for him? Oh, she said casually, brushing past me to grab her keys. You left that out. I didn't have time. Didn't have time? Didn't have time to read a single-page letter from your husband, the one sleeping in the guest room, the one who hasn't looked you in the eyes in 2 weeks, the one begging for a shred of connection? I wanted to shout. I wanted to say her name and make her see me. I wanted to beg her to read the damn thing, not because it would fix everything, but because it might remind her I still existed in this house. But I didn't say anything. Instead, I nodded, like a fool. And she left, the door clicking softly behind her like a final word I wasn't invited to hear. The silence that followed was unbearable. I walked back to the kitchen and picked up the note. For a second, I thought about throwing it away. But something in me, something stubborn and already bruised beyond repair, folded it back up and slid it into my jacket pocket. If she didn't want to read it, fine. But it still meant something to me. Around 10:45 that morning, I got a text from her. Don't wait up. Big project deadline. Might stay with Lila tonight. Lila. The friend I'd met twice in 6 years. The one who conveniently never answered my texts when I tried to plan a double date. I didn't even bother responding. I just sat on the edge of the bed, jacket still on, feeling like a man living in a life that used to belong to him. But I couldn't take it anymore. The not knowing. The pretending. So I did something I told myself I wouldn't do. I went back to the shared laptop. I opened her messages. I wish I hadn't. Because the first thing I saw was a thread labeled Snake, a nickname? A joke? I'll never know. But inside that thread were messages. Long ones. Paragraphs. Sentiments. She talked about me. About how she felt trapped. About how Grady wouldn't understand and he stopped seeing me years ago. But the worst one? He cried folding laundry yesterday. I almost felt bad. Almost. I dropped the laptop. Not metaphorically, I actually dropped it. It hit the carpet with a dull thud, and I just stared at it like it had physically slapped me. My chest tightened, my eyes burned, and for a second, I genuinely thought I might throw up. She saw me. She knew I was breaking. And she mocked it. I didn't cry then. I didn't have it in me. Instead, I walked back upstairs, grabbed my suitcase, zipped it shut, and wrote a new note. You said you didn't have time. Now you do. I'm gone. I didn't say where I was going. I didn't threaten. I didn't plead. I just left the note next to her untouched coffee cup, picked up my bag, and walked out the front door without locking it behind me. Not because I forgot. Because I didn't care anymore. I didn't have a destination when I left. I didn't call anyone. I didn't text a friend or book a hotel or even check the weather. I just drove. It was late afternoon when I ended up on an old hilltop road about 30 minutes outside of town, the kind of quiet, winding place you'd pass without noticing. I pulled into a dirt turnout and parked beneath a crooked tree. No signal, no lights, no one around. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel watched. I didn't feel judged. I didn't feel small. That night, I slept in my car. I curled up in the driver's seat, using my hoodie as a pillow, jacket over my legs. The air was cold and damp. My neck ached. My phone battery hit 3%. I ignored all of it. Because somehow, even with the crickets and stiff limbs and fog creeping across the windshield, I felt more human than I had in months. But then something strange happened. Just after sunrise, a knock on my window woke me up. I jolted upright, heart racing. An older man stood outside the car, late 60s, flannel shirt, baseball cap, and a cautious smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You all right, son?" he asked. I hesitated before rolling the window down halfway. "Yeah, sorry. Just needed a place to think." He nodded like he understood too well. "You were here all night?" "Yeah," I said. "I left my house." His gaze lingered. "You Odessa's husband?" The question hit me like a punch. My blood went cold. "What?" I asked slowly, my voice sharp. He pointed to the tree. "You don't remember me, huh? You two came up here years ago. Had that blue picnic blanket. She played guitar, badly. Said it was your anniversary." I blinked. He was right. 7 years ago, she brought me here on a whim, packed lunch in a basket she bought from a thrift store, and sang some half-forgotten folk song while the wind tangled her hair. I hadn't thought about that day in ages. "I maintain this trail now," he said. "See people come, go. But I remember the happy ones. You two were something else." I looked away, embarrassed. "Not anymore." He didn't press. He just leaned on his cane and stared at the horizon for a while. Then he muttered something that stuck with me all day. Funny how people say they change, but most just uncover the part they were hiding. That hit deeper than he knew. After he walked away, I sat there for another hour, chewing on his words. I remembered that picnic, the song, the way Odessa had pulled me into her lap and said, "No matter how boring life gets, this is our weird." And now, she barely saw me. She laughed at my tears. She just talked to another man while I folded her laundry. I started driving again, but not back home. Instead, I pulled into the parking lot of a rundown diner I used to visit before we were married. It was mostly empty, one woman reading a book by the window, a couple of truckers at the bar. I slid into a booth and ordered the same thing I always used to, black coffee and an overcooked omelet with way too much cheese. The waitress set it down without a word, but on her second pass she paused. "You look like a guy who's lost something." I gave a small laugh. "Yeah, my marriage, I think." She sat the coffee pot down and lowered her voice. "Then don't go looking for it where it stopped existing." That was the second stranger in a day to read my soul like a book left open in the rain. I sat there for over 2 hours, replaying everything, the towel on the floor, the untouched note, her voice on that call. I even started typing a message to her. Not a plea, not an apology, just a sentence. "Do you miss us at all?" But I deleted it. Because if she did, I wouldn't have to ask. I paid in cash and left, walking back to the car with a headache building behind my eyes. But when I unlocked the door, I noticed something. A missed call. From an unknown number. And then a voicemail. I tapped play, holding the phone to my ear, expecting spam or maybe a wrong number. But what I heard chilled me. A man's voice. Calm. Confident. "I assume you've seen the messages. I didn't mean for it to happen this way. But if she hasn't told you by now, maybe she never will. I just thought you deserved to know." No name. No number. Just that voice. And for the first time in this whole unraveling nightmare, I realized something terrifying. This wasn't just emotional. This was real. I played the voicemail again, just to make sure I hadn't imagined it. The man's voice was steady, measured, the kind of calm you hear from someone who's already accepted the fallout. It was clear. It was deliberate. And it was haunting. "I assume you've seen the messages. I didn't mean for it to happen this way. But if she hasn't told you by now, maybe she never will. I just thought you deserved to know." I stared at the number. It was a standard local area code. Not blocked. Not hidden. Whoever he was, he wanted to be found. And for reasons I still can't explain, I didn't call back right away. I drove again, circling through town like a ghost, past our old movie theater, the park where she once told me she wanted kids, the bakery we'd stop at every Sunday when we still liked each other. Everything felt like a faded photograph, still there, technically, but hollowed out by time and apathy. Finally, I pulled into an empty church parking lot and dialed the number. My hand was shaking so badly I had to use both thumbs. It rang once, twice, 3 times, then a click. But it wasn't a man who answered. "Hello," a woman said, her voice trembling. I blinked. I got a call from this number earlier." A voicemail. She went quiet for a second. Then, in a choked whisper, she said, "You're Grady, aren't you?" I felt a wave of nausea. "Yes," I said slowly. "Who are you?" She sniffled. "My name's Margot. I wasn't supposed to be involved in this. I didn't know who you were. Not until I saw your name in his phone last night." "His?" I asked, heart hammering. "Who is he?" She hesitated. "Eli. He's my fiancé." I couldn't speak. I literally couldn't form words. My tongue felt too big for my mouth. "I'm so sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to drag you into this. I didn't even know there was a you until I found your number saved under emergency in his backup contacts. I was trying to see if he was cheating on me." I laughed. It was a dry, bitter sound that didn't feel like mine. "Well, congratulations. He is. And so is my wife." Margot cried harder. I could hear her trying to muffle it through the line, but it was useless. She sounded broken. And that was the moment I realized something I hadn't expected. I didn't feel angry at her. I felt sorry for her. We were both drowning in the same ocean, just clinging to different pieces of a shipwreck. "I thought maybe," she said between shaky breaths, "if I told you, we could figure out what to do." My mind was spinning. I never imagined I'd be standing in a cracked church parking lot, discussing mutual betrayal with a complete stranger. But something about it made sense. Of course this wasn't just some flirtation. Of course it was deeper, more layered. I knew Odessa wasn't emotionally clumsy. If she'd opened up to someone, it was deliberate. And now I knew why things had gotten so cold. She wasn't preparing for a fling. She was preparing for replacement. "I need to ask you something," I said after a long pause. Has Odessa met him in person?" Margot was quiet. Then, "Yes. Twice that I know of. Once when I thought he was visiting his brother in Vermont. And once when he said he had a client weekend in Asheville. He had photos, but they were cropped." I zoomed in and found her hair. Her coat. It felt like the world tilted. Asheville. That one-way flight she searched for. The puzzle pieces weren't just clicking into place. They were punching me in the gut as they landed. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "I'm sorry," she said again, quietly. "I am too," I replied. More than I thought possible. We ended the call. No plans. No strategy. Just two strangers bound by the same emotional wreckage, whispering apologies no one else would hear. I sat there in silence, watching a group of kids kick a soccer ball in the field nearby. Their laughter carried in the breeze, sharp and innocent. And for the first time, I didn't feel like the main character in some tragic love story. I felt like a background extra in a life I no longer fit into. But I wasn't finished yet. I still had the keys. I still had the house. And now I had the truth. All I needed was the right moment. And it came sooner than I expected, that very night, when she came home smiling. And smelled like his cologne. I didn't plan it. I didn't rehearse a speech in my head or practice what I'd say in front of the bathroom mirror. I didn't even know if I'd say anything at all. But when she came through that door with that expression, relaxed shoulders, soft grin, hair tousled just enough to look like it wasn't, something in me decided that silence had run its course. She tossed her bag on the bench by the stairs, took off her boots, and glanced into the kitchen like it was just another Thursday. No guilt. No hesitation. Just casual Odessa, floating through my ruins like nothing was burning. "Hey," she said cheerfully, without looking at me. "I hope you ate." I grabbed something on the way. I didn't respond right away. I just stared at her, standing in the doorway with my arms crossed. Her perfume lingered in the air. Except it wasn't her usual one, the citrusy scent she'd worn since college. This one was heavier. Muskier. And it wasn't hers. It was his. So I asked the only question that came to mind. One sentence. No anger. No drama. "Do you feel bad at all?" She froze. And for the first time in weeks, she looked caught. Not shocked. Not scared. Just interrupted. "What do you mean?" she asked carefully, like someone stepping around broken glass. I tilted my head. "Do you feel bad? About lying? About him? About me sitting in the guest room while you send love notes to a guy who calls you, oh? Do you feel bad that I found out from his fiancée? Or that I had to hear a voicemail from him instead of hearing it from you?" She blinked slowly, her mouth opening slightly but offering no sound. I saw the texts, I continued. I saw the flight searches. I know about Asheville. I know you've met him. I know more than you think I do. Still, nothing. Just her standing there, fingers curling slightly around the handle of her bag, I scanning my face like she was looking for a version of me she could still manipulate. Then finally, she spoke. I didn't want to hurt you. I laughed, but it came out like a cough. That's the first thing you say? She stepped forward. Grady. No, I interrupted. You don't get to say my name like we're still in this together. We're not. You've been gone for weeks. Months, maybe. You just forgot to tell me. She exhaled sharply, like she was finally dropping the act. It wasn't supposed to become this. It started as friendship. I was lonely. While I was right here? I asked, my voice rising for the first time. In the same house? Folding your laundry? Making you tea when you couldn't sleep? Her face twisted. You stopped seeing me, Grady. You were always tired. Always anxious. You made everything about survival. About routine. I needed to feel like someone still wanted me. There it was. Not an apology. Not regret. A justification. And something about the way she said it, with tears welling but not falling, with her tone walking that fine line between victimhood and blame, made everything click into place. This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice. You could have talked to me, I said quietly. You could have screamed at me, thrown a plate, asked for therapy, said you weren't happy. But you didn't. You turned away and let him become your person. And now you expect me to what? Understand. She looked down. I don't expect anything. No, I said, stepping back. You don't. Because you already made peace with the idea of me walking away. And that's when she finally cried. Not the dramatic kind. Not sobbing or collapsing to her knees. Just a single, shaky breath as 2 tears rolled down her cheeks. I don't know how to fix it, she whispered. You don't want to fix it, I replied. You want it to end without having to be the one who ends it. We stood there in silence for what felt like a lifetime. Then I did something neither of us expected. I walked to the drawer, pulled out a pen, and grabbed the back of a grocery list on the fridge. I wrote my number on it and handed it to her. If you ever figure out who you are, and you're not someone who lies or mocks her husband's tears, maybe call me. Maybe. She looked at it, stunned. Where are you going? I pointed to my suitcase. Somewhere that doesn't make me feel disposable. And this time, when I closed the door behind me, I locked it. From the outside. It's strange how silence can feel heavy and light at the same time. That first night away from Odessa felt like walking barefoot across broken glass and cool grass simultaneously. I checked into a small, worn-down roadside motel, the kind where the carpet is stiff, the lampshades are crooked, and the shower has 2 temperatures, freezing or lava. But it was quiet. I could breathe. I didn't feel like a ghost in someone else's life anymore. I sat on the bed for hours, not scrolling, not texting, just thinking. No one knew where I was except me. Not my coworkers, not my brother, not even Margot. I wanted to disappear, but in a way that didn't feel like running, more like pausing. Like stepping out of the traffic before getting hit again. The next morning, I bought myself a breakfast sandwich at a gas station and ate it slowly in the parking lot, watching cars pass like they all belonged to a world I'd been gently exiled from. I almost felt human again. I even laughed once, out loud, at a kid in the next car over who dropped a milkshake onto his lap and screamed like his life had ended. The mother gave me a glare when she saw me laughing, but I didn't care. For that 1 second, I forgot about her. About Eli. About Asheville. About what she had whispered behind my back and written with her silence. I was still broken, but I was breathing. That night, I slept deeper than I had in weeks. No dreams. Just dark, quiet rest. And then the phone rang. It was just after 8 a.m. the next morning. I recognized the number immediately, but it still took me a few seconds to answer. Odessa's mother. Her name was Mary Ann, and we used to get along really well, actually. She once told me she admired how I listened more than I spoke, that I had a kindness in my eyes, that Odessa was lucky. I think she meant it then. But I hadn't heard from her since the last holiday dinner, when Odessa spent most of the evening texting under the table. I picked up. Grady. Her voice was tight, controlled, but not cold. Yes, I said cautiously. I know this might be uncomfortable, she began, but I just got off the phone with my daughter. She said you left. I stayed quiet. She told me you found out about someone. A man. Again, I said nothing, because I didn't know where this was going. Then she said something I didn't expect. I want you to know, She told me half the story. That got my attention. Half? I asked. Marian sighed. Odessa has always had this talent for curating the narrative. Even as a child, she paints with selective honesty. She told me you became distant, that you were emotionally unavailable, that you left before she could explain. That's not true, I said, my voice trembling. She left emotionally months ago. She was planning trips. She was deleting messages. She mocked me behind my back. I wrote her a letter she never read. I asked her if she missed me, and she shrugged. Marian didn't interrupt. And, I added, I heard from his fiancée, the other woman in this twisted story. She's real. And she's hurting just like I am. There was silence on the line for several seconds. Then Marian said, very quietly, she didn't tell me that part. I could hear something crack in her voice. I raised her better than that, she said. Or at least I thought I did. Why are you calling me? I asked finally, unsure whether this was support or just damage control. Because I needed you to hear this from someone who still sees you. You were never the villain in this. And if no one else is going to say it, then I will. I'm sorry. I'm sorry she treated you like that. I swallowed hard. I think she's scared, she added. Not of you. Of herself. Of how much she enjoyed the version of her that didn't need to answer to anyone. And maybe now, she's realizing that version comes with consequences. I didn't know what to say. I had spent weeks spiraling into self-blame, wondering what I could have done differently. If I could have made her stay. If I was somehow unlovable. But here was the one person who might have defended her, and instead, she was defending me. Thank you, I said finally. That means more than you know. Grady, she said slowly, I don't think she knows what she wants. But I think she's about to realize what she lost. I ended the call and sat on the edge of the bed in that tiny motel room, sunlight streaking across the floor like a quiet promise. My chest still ached. But for the first time, I didn't feel crazy. And just as I stood up to open the curtains fully, my phone buzzed again. A new message. From Odessa. Can we meet? I think I finally understand. We met at a small cafe tucked between a florist and a used bookstore, the kind of place where the music is soft, the mugs are mismatched, and the smell of warm cinnamon hangs in the air. I picked the table in the corner, facing the door. I didn't want to turn my back to anything anymore. She was 10 minutes late. That used to drive me crazy, her chronic lateness, but this time, I didn't care. When she finally walked in, she looked different. Not dramatic. Just smaller. Quieter. The confidence she wore like armor had cracks in it now. She slid into the seat across from me without a word. Her eyes looked tired. Her hands were shaking slightly. She didn't have her phone out. That alone was a miracle. I didn't think you'd come, she said finally. I didn't think you would ask, I replied. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out something that nearly stopped my heart. The letter. The one I wrote and left on her pillow. Still folded. Still creased. But now opened. I read it, she said quietly. Twice. I nodded slowly. I didn't want to before, she continued. Because I knew once I did, I'd have to face what I was doing. What I'd become. I watched her closely. She wasn't performing. She wasn't dodging. This was the real Odessa, or maybe a version of her I hadn't seen in years. I was angry, she said. At myself. At you. At everything. I felt stuck. And instead of asking for help, I punished the one person who never stopped trying. I didn't say anything. I let her speak. I told myself we were just talking. That it wasn't real. But it was. And I let it grow because it made me feel like I mattered again. And that wasn't fair to you. Still, I stayed silent. Not out of coldness, out of something new. Clarity. She took a deep breath. I'm not asking for you to forgive me. I'm not asking to fix anything. I just needed to say I was wrong. Completely. And I'm sorry. It was quiet for a long moment. Then I said, thank you. She looked surprised. Maybe she expected a fight. A breakdown. A speech. But I had none of those left in me. I needed to hear that, I added. Because I've been carrying your silence like it was proof that I wasn't enough. You were always enough, she whispered. I smiled, not a big one. Just a small, tired smile. I know that now. She wiped a tear from her cheek. Where do we go from here? I leaned back. You go wherever you need to figure yourself out. I go wherever I don't feel small. She nodded slowly, understanding. I want good things for you, Grady, she said. I want them for myself too, I replied. We paid separately. She offered a hug. I gave it. It wasn't warm. It wasn't cold. It was closure. When I stepped outside, the air felt different. Lighter. Like I'd taken off a heavy coat I forgot I was wearing. And for the first time in a long, long time, I didn't feel like a man trying to hold together something broken. I felt like a man who finally put the pieces down and chose to walk forward with open hands. Later that week, I got a short message from Margot, the other betrayed half in this twisted web. She said she was moving cities, starting over, and thanked me for not lashing out when everything fell apart. We wished each other well. 2 months later, I moved into a small apartment above a bike shop. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. I started painting again. Badly. I joined a support group and made 3 friends who knew the exact flavor of heartbreak I carried. One of them, a guy named Tom with a crooked smile and stories more brutal than mine, became a regular lunch buddy. And one morning, while pouring coffee into a chipped mug in my kitchen, I caught myself humming. Just humming. No reason. No pain. Just peace.